In a world where anything is possible, in a world where the normal and the paranormal reside, Almost Unbelievable brings to you the stories you want to hear, but fear to hear. Join us in the pit.
You have joined the Almost Unbelievable Paranormal Podcast with Cats. I'm Ranty. Are you there, Cats?
I am here and I'm looking forward to today's show. As always, tell me a little bit about it.
Well, Zack has an incredible story to tell us. Him and his wife, believe it or not, now, I don't know whether it's true or not, but they believe that they can meditate to the point where they can actually visualize other beings in different universes, in different worlds, and go there, converse with them, be sometimes even fed information that should help advance our technological abilities. How astonishing is that?
That is pretty astonishing, yeah. And I do believe he's brought a technical innovation that he was given for us to look at today, which I'm extremely looking forward to looking at. But before we do that, I do have a little story of my own about magical beings that seem to appear out of nowhere. Would you like to hear it?
I certainly would, and I'm all ears. Go ahead, Kaz.
Well, it's a true or false story. Have you heard the story of Emily Sagi? And if I pronounced that wrong, which I probably have, I apologise.
I can't say I have, Kaz.
So the story of Emily Sagi is actually quite well known.
Well, not that well known, is it? I didn't remember it.
Well, true. It does date back to the mid to late 1860s. But essentially, it's a story of somebody who was a school teacher. Apparently, she was a very happy, bubbly, popular school teacher. Kids really liked her. All the staff at the schools really liked her. But there was a problem. In a period of 16 years, she was employed in 18 different schools. Now, I am, for those who don't know, who are listening, I am a teacher. And how can I put it? If another teacher arrives at your school and in the past 4 or 5 years has been in 4 or 5 schools, there is perhaps a question about why have they been in 4 or 5 schools over the past 4 or 5 years? Why haven't they been kept on by any of the schools? What is wrong with them? You know, it's a little bit unfair perhaps, but there's an expectation on those teachers to sort of prove themselves and show why they've been moving on so quickly. But yeah, 18 schools in 16 different years. But it turns out that Emily was actually an extremely good teacher. Do you want to take a wild guess at why she might have moved schools so often?
I'm going to say maybe she was Mary Poppins.
But very possibly. The truth could be even more strange than that. Apparently, she had a doppelganger. And this is all Googleable. She was a real character. It was some sort of ghostly twin that would just appear at random moments, either while she was teaching a class and she had her back to the kids, or when she was meeting with other teachers in the staff room, etc. And it would mock and mimic Emily's actions, which would really obviously freak out anybody that was stood talking to her and watching her. And it was for that reason that she was moved on from, 18 different schools in 16 years, wasn't it? So incredible. Now that apparently is a true story. So whether her doppelganger was a real person or whether she was being stalked maybe by somebody or whether it was an actual ghost, who knows? What do you think?
Well, you know me, I've got stories about doppelgangers myself. My sister had a doppelganger of her own that essentially walked into the room where my auntie was serving up a cup of tea and my auntie talked to her and this, that and the other, but my sister was never there. So, and of course there's my mum as well, you know, with what happened to her. I mean, these stories are on the podcast if you want to take a chance and listen back to them. That's all great. But yeah, do I believe in doppelgangers? Absolutely. And I can imagine that was quite scary back in the 1800s, though.
I imagine it was, and there were very few explanations because it was such a weird story. However, funnily enough, we did speak to FTFE, the big YouTuber, on a previous podcast about parallel worlds, and one of the theories about Emily Sagi comes from the world of physics, and that is, could this doppelganger actually have been Emily in a parallel universe as different choices were being made, you know, different worlds split off when different choices made? Could it have been a glimpse of a ghostly figure of herself as that was happening? So who knows? There you go.
And just leading on from that as well, if you remember, we had a lady on called Alex. And if you remember when she was telling her story about the scene of this ghostly-like figure with a woman and a walking a dog and disappeared right in front of them. But she recalls that her friend turned around and said, "Hey, do you know what? That spirit, let's say, or that person that we saw with the dog looked like you and the dog." So, I mean, maybe there is something to that. Maybe there are these parallel worlds where people are just repeating the same things at the same time in the same locations, doing the same manual job, and they just happen to just bump into each other. Maybe this Alex was just walking a dog at a similar time that she walks a dog in a different universe. Who knows? And like you say, maybe with this teacher as well, maybe that's a part of that too. How very interesting.
Oh yeah, very interesting. Actually, I'm going to have to look into the physics of that. Maybe we could do a podcast all about it at some point in the future. But for now, I will let you introduce the guest.
Yes, so today's guest is called Zack. And as I've already told you in the introduction, Zack believes that he can communicate with outer-worldly beings from different universes, different star systems. So, without a moment to waste, let's introduce today's guest. Hello, Zack. Are you there?
I am here.
Awesome. Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to pop myself on mute and I'm going to let you tell us the story from start to finish. Go ahead.
All right, so it started roughly about probably like 10 years ago is when I first really had my first experience with UFOs. I used to sit out on my bed and look out over the valley. I lived up in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, up in Washington State. And I would sometimes see these red balls of light fall through the clouds and end up dropping into the forest. And I know it's not flares because a lot of people have said it's flares. Flares float down, they're slow moving. And I know it wasn't a shooting star because those things are really fast. This fell into the forest and just disappeared. So that really kind of got my interest in like the whole UFOs, like extraterrestrial stuff. And about, I'd say probably, I think it was like 2018 I was working at like a wood mill type thing that makes moldings for like houses, whatever. And one of my buddies there, one of my coworkers, was also pretty into the UFO stuff. And so I had shown him some pictures that I had taken from when I was living there in my house. I was playing around on Snapchat and I was taking some photos outside of the window. And, I'd draw like funny pictures and whatnot, make it look weird, whatever. But I had noticed a little weird, shiny, almost like a little oval. I wouldn't say like a tic tac, but it was like small and like ovalish. And there's a second one just above it. And I thought, that's pretty cool. And of course, there's a bird in the picture, so I know it's not like a bird. I know it's not an airplane. There's no wings. It's just this little tic tac shaped thing. There's two of them. And I had went to work the next night, and I had shown my buddy this, and he freaked out because the previous evening, his buddy had taken a photo of these same objects, but they were lit up. And you can see like almost like a disc shape to like the image, and it was like pinkish bluish. So that was pretty interesting. And that kind of really solidified my beliefs in UFOs. So fast forward to roughly 3 months ago, my wife and I, we started doing meditations because we're both pretty spiritual people. We're both Wiccan, pagan. And so we do a lot of meditations. We do a lot of different kinds of spell work, all different kinds of stuff. And we had heard about this thing called CE5. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it.
CE5? No, that's new to me. What is it?
And it's new to me as well, I have to say.
So, a man named Stephen Greer. I'm not sure if you've heard of him.
Oh, Stephen Greer, the big, bulky doctor who's always on the UFO programs.
Yeah, he started kind of coined that CE5 thing. I know a lot of people talk down on him because I guess he's charges like a shit ton of money for like these whole excursions or projects or take people out in the desert, see some UFOs. I'm not too sure about it. A lot of people don't like him. I don't know why, because my wife and I, we have tried this stuff. And I'm telling you, it works. So what we did was we put on some like EDM chill step music, like instrumental stuff, trying to like get into like that ethereal mood. We lit some candles and we set up this crystal grid. We used high vibrational crystals such as like celestite, selenite, amethyst, what are some others? Blue kyanite, like a bunch of aura crystals, angel aura, rose quartz. We had some moldavite. Anyways, lots of high vibrational crystals, and we set it up in like a crystal grid antenna. And so what we did is I had meditated to the point of becoming one with my surroundings, and I could literally see like the roots of my being bleed through into the earth, and it was like this bluish white magnetic flowing like fluid electricity like web. I could see it like connecting to all other living things around me. I could see through the walls. I could see like their beings, not their physical like their skin, their clothes, like their actual like energy, like their silhouette of like their energy being. And at that point, I had taken everything that I had found and brought it up and pushed it out through my third eye, and I basically invited any benevolent being to come meet me. Now, at that point, I saw a white hole of energy open up in front of me. It had like this golden aura around it, and inside I saw these three beings. They were very tall, they had very long necks, they almost had like a praying mantis's shaped head. It was very rounded, bulbous around like where the head, like the cranial area is, like towards the back. They had large almond-shaped black eyes, very pointed small chins. They were wearing these like long flowing robes, like silver, like white and gold, and they had like these weird shoulder things, like at the ends, like little like silvery balls. I'm not sure what they were wearing. It was very weird, but they were standing behind like this, or they were standing in front of this craft. It almost it almost looked like a Pringles chip. You know how it kind of has the flared sides, but it was very flat and it had like the center like bulbed area, kind of like a half raised oval. You just plop it right in the middle of a Pringles chip. It was like silvery, metallic. It was very shiny, very reflective. And at one point, I wanted to go into this hole. I wanted to go to where they were at. I was just in awe. I wanted to go there. And I think they heard me because at that point, I could feel their arms and hands around me, pulling me out of my own body. Like they separated my spiritual self from my physical self and brought me into this place. They shared with me a lot of information, a lot about what people call God. What we know as God is the absolute source of all energy and all consciousness in the universe. Every living being is a part of this source, and it is living throughout all of these bodies, all humans, extraterrestrials, animals, plants. They're living simultaneously throughout space and time. And the sole purpose of this is to experience life itself. Anyways, they told me a lot about like who we are, what our place is in the universe. And they've been here a long time. They did not create us, but they helped get the ball rolling, so to speak. How I like to put it is they knocked over the first domino, but they did not create the domino, if that makes sense. So my next experience was I had gone into this meditation to try to connect with these other beings, or like these beings that I met, but at one point I had gotten to the point where I was sending out like my exact location, who I was, my memories of this place. I sent out the images of like where our planet was in our solar system, what landmass I was on, by what body of water I was on, what city I lived in, almost pinpointing my exact location. And I sent that out into the universe, and I got a response back. I was brought to a very, I guess you could call it astral projection, but this felt different. I could see the planets of this other star system. This other star had a very dense cloud. It was very small. It was a very small, dim star. I could see 4 inner planets. I saw a larger ringed planet, and then I saw 2 smaller outer planets. And it brought me to this 4th planet, and it had a purple atmosphere, very thin. I could see it had a very sandy, orangish, greenish land. I saw large bodies of water, like one big ocean, just huge. And then next, I was brought to like this little valley. I was in between these mountain ranges, and I saw all of these small, like domed houses, I guess, like dwellings. Think of like a bee's honeycomb, except made out of domes. And I saw like this family of beings. They were purple skin, very pale white purple, and they all dressed almost identically. Very simplistic, very almost fine bluish, purplish, like I don't even know how to describe the fabric they were wearing. They had very blocky, angular heads, very square, almost like kind of like crunched in. Their facial features were really shrunk, but they looked like normal. They had normal, like almost like what eyes that we have. Same noses, very blocky mouths, very blocky chins. But their mouths looked the same. I saw the star in the sky is very dim. I saw what looked like a moon or a small planet in the sky as well, behind like it was off to my left, right above one of the mountain ranges. Yeah, they just shared basically what I had shared with them. I didn't get to ask any questions. They didn't ask any questions. I just shared where I'm from, and they shared where they're from. And when the meditation was over, I was just left with like this huge sense of awe. I wanted to go back. I wanted to see more.
And did you eventually get to see more? Was that the only contact you had?
With that one, yeah, that's it. That was it.
Yeah, so I have a question. So you
Yeah.
said that you wanted to go back on this particular occasion, but does that happen on every single time that you go to
No.
these places? It was just this place that meant something special.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then fast forward to my next experience, we were actually visited. It was just a normal night. Just my wife and I, we just got done watching some Family Guy. We were going to bed. I'd say it was probably like 10, 11 o'clock at night. She comes into the bedroom. She gets ready to lay down. I'm going to go grab my drink from the kitchen real quick. And where our living room is, it's connected straight off from the kitchen. It goes through like a small little doorway, opens up into the dining room, and then off to the right is the kitchen. Keep going straight. There's our sliding glass door. We're on the second floor of our apartment. There's a balcony, just kind of like painting the picture for you. The dining room table is off to the left, and that's where my drink was. So the lights were off. I go in, and I just, you know how you can just walk into any room, you just know where the light switch is. You just automatically go to flip it. I do that, and I'm going to reach for my water bottle or juice or whatever it was. And I see something standing in the doorway of the sliding glass door because the curtains were drawn back, I'd say probably about like 6 inches, maybe 6 to 8 inches. So you can kind of see out through the glass. And it happened very quickly. All I was able to see, at least me, I was able to see was its leg and the hip. All I saw was like its legs coming up to about its hip because it had darted off. The hip was well above where the door handle was. And if you know like any size door, it's about probably like 6-7 feet. Maybe no, I'd say probably like 7 feet. Door handle is probably midway up. So this thing was tall. It had like a pale white skin, and it was very, very thin. You can clearly see the muscles in its leg, and I was able to see the tendon behind its knee. And you know, you can see if you look at your behind your knee, you can see like the small little tendons behind there. These ones stuck out a lot more. They came probably halfway to its calf, all the way up to like halfway up its thigh. The tendon it was huge, and darted off to the left. And there's nothing out there except for our barbecue and a very thin railing. There's no other way to get down, and it got onto our roof, and it was able to get to our balcony to our roof in under 2 seconds. There's just no way it was someone. I've had people tell me it's some crackhead, some meth head trying to climb on our roof, get in our garbage, do whatever. It's like, no, there's just no way. No crackhead's going to come up to our second floor balcony and climb up on our roof in the middle of winter. Like that does not happen. So I run in to tell my wife what happened. And she gets a little freaked out, as am I. She told me I looked like I had just seen a ghost. I mean, I was shaking. I did not expect to see that. And so after kind of like being a little paranoid, looking out the window, seeing like, are they still here? Where are they? Where'd this fucker go? Right? So night goes on and I'm getting kind of settled down, starting to get tired, and I go to bed. My wife wakes up in the middle of the night to turn the fan on in our room. She comes back around, get back into bed, and she turns around and she says that she saw this extraterrestrial, this ET being in our room, crouching down right in front of our dresser, staring at us. She said it had white skin, it was crouching down, and it was very skinny, and it had a very small, white, egg-shaped head. And she had gone to grab her phone to turn the light on and like shine it at it. And she said as soon as she did that, it disappeared. Just gone.
That must have seemed really, really freaky. How did you react to that?
Dude, my adrenaline was like off the charts, man. I was shaking. Because usually going into those meditations, trying to make contact, I'm conscious of what I'm doing. I know what I'm going to get myself. Well, not really know, but I know the gist of what I'm getting myself into. It just happening like out of the blue like that, it was freaky. It was pretty scary.
So while you're doing these meditations and you're having this contact,
Mm-hmm.
are these aliens you see, how physical are they? Are they mental, or do they appear physically in front of you?
It's hard to explain because it's kind of both. Physically, I am here, but mentally, I am somewhere else, and they are physically there. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're seeing what their physicality is like through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they're not here in front of me. I'm in front of them.
Yeah. So you couldn't like reach out and touch them,
No.
that kind of thing.
No.
Yeah. So it's a perception of what they look like.
Mm-hmm.
From where you are, right? Okay, because I was essentially going to go on to ask, like, would they be leaving footprints on the carpet, that kind of thing.
That's what I was, because unfortunately it had snowed just after this had happened, and I wish it had snowed so I can go out and see some kind of footprints in the snow on our balcony.
I'll let you carry on. I'll put myself back on mute, but I'll stop interrupting and let you carry on.
No, okay, yeah. So this is probably my most recent one. It had begun with another one of these meditations. My wife and I had found some pretty cool like meditation guides and whatnot, and we had settled in on our little yoga mats. We got the incense lit. We got some crystals, and we're getting in the mood. And we sat down. We got in our positions, and we were just doing our thing. And at one point, I'd gotten in the mood. I was in total Zen mode. I was feeling very grounded. I could see myself becoming one with everything again. And then I pushed myself out to try to make contact. And I was brought to this hillside, almost like it looked like a large lake within a mountain range. And in the side of this hillside was this large temple. For lack of a better word, I mean, this thing looked immaculate. It had large spires everywhere. It was sandy gold colored. It looked like it was made of gold, but it wasn't exactly gold. I don't know how to explain it, but it had large spires everywhere, large columns, huge, just square doorways, windows. I mean, this place was just absolutely beautiful. I felt like I was not worthy to be there. And I was brought to this large doorway. I mean, this thing was at least 300 feet tall. This thing was massive. And this large being came out of this doorway in like a flash of light. I mean, this being was huge. It was probably almost 200 feet, 300 feet tall. And it was just wearing all gold, silver, just decked out in jewels. I mean, this thing, it looked like a king. like an alien king. I don't know. I know that sounds crazy, but it had, all I saw was its head, because it was just, everything was just covered by this large robe and everything. All I saw was its head, and it had a very large, elongated skull with a very pointy chin, and it had the large black eyes, the gray skin, and it had like this weird, large, like semicircular collar behind its head, and it like rose up like to over its head. It was almost like a hood collar. I don't know, but it like shrunk down. It like became my size, and it brought me to this like floating barge, like boat craft type thing, and it took me out over the water. And I asked, who are you? And it told me its name. It told me its name was Saria. And I asked, what do you want? Like, why am I here? And it gave me this box. It gave me this small golden box. And it was decked out in all kinds of different jewels. And it had like this weird aura around it. It was like this light source. It was like blossoming and then like circling in back on itself infinitely. And it was just really hard to look at. I don't know how else to explain it. It was like coming out and then going around back into itself. That's probably the best I can explain it. And I opened it up, and I was able to take this large staff out of this small box. It was like almost like a shepherd's staff, if you know, like the long stick with like the curved end on the top. And it was made out of like a wooden metal. That's the best I can explain it. A wooden metal. And it had like all kinds of jewels on the top. The top curved part was made out of this like greenish crystal. And it had like this ball of light at the end. And when I asked Saria, like, what do you want me to do? And it told me, go forth and love all. And at that point, I was brought back to my living room. I was brought back to me. And like when it was over, it was just left. I was dumbfounded. I didn't know. I didn't know what any of it meant.
Okay. Well, it seems to me like you're having quite a lot of these episodes when you actually go into some kind of trance or some kind of, well, I say trance meditation.
Mm.
Do you feel that, this is going to happen again? You've got the ability to do this again?
I don't want to say I do, because it doesn't happen every time. I don't want to say I can do this. I just say I know how to do it.
Okay. And this was your last story?
Yeah, my most recent one.
Okay. So, as you're going to appreciate, the more we do these podcasts, the more questions we get asked, and we get some of the more skeptical people asking questions that we wouldn't have actually thought to ask you. So, in a way, we're going to try and tag these in with some kind of housekeeping questions. And I suppose some of them might sound a little bit strange or insulting in a way, but it's mainly because we know what our audience is going to ask. So,
What I like to say, it's okay to be a skeptic. It's just not okay to be a dick.
that's fair enough. Yeah. So, right. Well, let me just ask a few of these questions, get these out of the way so
Sure.
that we can lay these to rest. Right. Okay. So, are you in any kind of medication for any kind of medical condition?
No.
And do you smoke any weed or take any drugs or recreational drugs or anything like that?
No.
So this is a good start. This is a good start because there's guaranteed that a lot of the comments, especially on the YouTube channel, will
Especially
be
Reddit.
along those lines. Yes. So,
Well, I've got a question, bit of a house. Well, is it a housekeeping question? I guess I'll let you decide. In any of these sort of conversations, these dialogues you had with these beings, these aliens, were you ever given some information that you were not aware of at the time? About the world or about a forthcoming event or about, I don't know, any sort of information that was verified post the event that kind of like adds weight?
So I wouldn't say like asking about like the future, but I was given an idea to build a perpetual motion machine. using electromagnets, regulated electromagnetic pulses, photovoltaic cells, and zero gravity. Now, I am not a scientist in any way, so I have no idea how to put my information to play.
And was that information given kind of like verbally, mentally, written instructions, or like how was that information presented to you?
It was just, bam, implanted in my mind. It's just given.
And is it something that you can recall details of now, or over time does it like memory fade? Or...
I mean, I have like a small diagram that I've built, like I drew. I could probably send it to you.
That would be amazing, yeah. I mean, I'm no engineer.
Trust me, neither am I, and I'm no artist either.
that would actually be amazing, yeah. If you could do that, I'd
Yeah,
love to
absolutely.
See that. I'd love to see it.
And have you got the images that you sent to your friend or you showed your friend
Yeah,
of the orbs?
absolutely. I have both mine and his.
Oh, right, okay. Could you send us them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to email them to you?
Yeah, not right now, but yeah, sure, after the podcast. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, so how long do you think when you're doing these trances, let's say, how long do you think you're in these for? Is there a time scale?
So when I went to, when one of my first experience when I went through that little quote unquote portal, that white hole of energy with the golden aura that saw the three beings, whatnot, I had no sense of time. It was like I was in a room like deep underground with no clocks, no telling if it was day or night. I didn't know what time it was. Like you just don't know anything about time. It's like there was no sense of it.
Okay, and do you watch any Star Trek or Star Wars, or are you often looking on the internet at lots of different galaxies and things like this?
Who doesn't do that? Who doesn't watch Star Wars? Come on, Ranty. What kind of a question is that?
Well,
everybody watches Star Wars.
Well, I guess my question, obviously, that's going to lead into that is, some of these places that you've seen on your travels, let's say, are any of those something that you may have seen on the internet, let's say?
Actually, yeah. After what my wife had kind of described the being that visited us, think of those tall white aliens from the ones that created the clones.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Clone Wars on Star Wars.
Yeah, in the Clone Wars, the tall ones where Obi-Wan fights Boba Fett or whatever his name was, Jango.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
Yeah, those tall, identical-looking ones. That's kind of what they look like, but more. This had the same body structure.
I know what you mean, but I can't think of the names.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
So, do you think that some of these aliens that you've perhaps seen, have you seen them on any kind of films or anything like this? Is there anything that may link into that?
No, nothing really like that. But I remember there's a story, like probably a few years ago, I was going around on YouTube looking at like the top 10 mysterious paranormal stuff like that. And I remember seeing it's like this letter that someone left behind and it drew like three aliens on it. I'm not sure if you've seen that. I can probably find you an image of it, but the head shape, that mantis head shape, it was the same. It's exactly what I saw.
Okay, and you say you do this with your wife, so
Yes.
you go into these meditation states. Does she see the same thing as you?
Yeah.
So when you go to these different places, let's say, they're all decked out in all these gold and silver and stuff like this, are you saying that she goes with you? She travels with you at the same time?
No, so she has her own separate experiences, but like with the same beings.
Huh.
I remember she told me during the first one, she saw the same three beings, but she was seeing like a bunch of like runes, letters, like blue letters. She couldn't really make it out, but like she asked them the name or something along those lines. I can't remember, but it just simplified the runes into the letter H. I did not see this. That was her experience, but with the same beings.
So when you come back from these experiences and you talk to your wife about what you've seen, often things match up. Then obviously,
yeah,
like the stories aren't contradicting each other.
No, they're similar, but not the same.
Yeah, and you're not being fed contradictory information,
no.
Or anything like that. It all sounds incredibly fun. And does this happen at the same time?
Yeah. We do it at the same time.
This does remind me of a story I heard on Coast to Coast AM of somebody who claimed that they were astral projected and visiting aliens. I think they said they were aliens based, not from Mars, but who are basing themselves on Mars or something. It's not the first time I've heard a story like this, which is interesting, because I'm going to assume that you've probably not heard that particular Coast to Coast AM episode.
Not that specific one, but I do remember hearing like some kind of like CIA astral projection stuff with something like remote viewing a base on Mars from like 10 million years ago in the past or something like that. I'm not sure if you've heard that.
The Major Ed Dames episode. Well, one of the Major Ed Dames episodes.
Maybe, I don't know. I used to listen to Coast AM, but I haven't listened to it in a while.
Oh, I used to have it on all the time. In fact, to be honest, it was one of the inspirations for this, or one of the inspirations for me wanting to do a podcast like this. I love that show. I thought it was brilliant. But if you are listening to this podcast, listen to this one first before you go over. Yeah. I don't know what to say. What about you, Ranty? Have you got any more questions?
Yeah, I've got more questions. Can you tell us the setup of how you actually go about going into this meditation? Tell us the process that you go through. Is there any music playing in the background that's you're both listening to? Is there any kind of smells that are drafting around the same room at the same time?
Yeah, so yeah, we put on some like EDM chill step instrumentals, so it's not like you're hearing lyrics, because when you listen to music, you're trying to do other stuff. You kind of focus on the lyrics while you're doing it. The instrumentals kind of eliminate that distraction and allows us to have better concentration of the meditation. We have some incense that we light, like your typical like amber, your lavender, like rainforest. Let's just standard incenses. Yeah, we get our yoga mats out. We sit in like that crisscrossed applesauce position, back straight. Doesn't have to be like completely straight, just comfortable. Just close your eyes, push out any kind of thought and distraction that's happening outside of the room that I am in. Everything does not matter outside of the room that I am in, kind of mentality. It eliminates a lot of thoughts, outside thoughts. It allows me to connect with myself and kind of puts a barrier of things on the outside influencing the things on the inside. And that's pretty much the goal of meditation, at least in my opinion. Grounding myself, I try to like envision myself as a tree and my roots bleeding out into the earth, becoming one with the earth. And that kind of helps me get into the mood that I am becoming one with everything. Because these extraterrestrials, these interdimensional, they're spiritual. They're spiritual beings. They understand that we are all connected. So when you're able to get into that mentality, it helps bridge the gap between our two existences.
So, if somebody else was in the room with you, watching you while you were doing the meditation, I'm assuming all they would see is you doing the meditation. This is all something that is like a mental link, is it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Except for the one that came into your room.
Yes. Yeah, that was that. Yeah.
Now, I'm struggling to try and think of reasons why that would have been a hallucination.
There's just no way.
You know, this alien that walked into your room, is it something that you'd seen before in your mind?
No, completely new.
Okay.
It's a fascinating story for me, this one. It's very, very difficult because the way that it's taken place with being the mental link through the astral projection, then you're not going to get the physical sort of like hard, you're not going to bring back a piece of the spaceship, you know what I mean? You're not going to get that kind of physical hard evidence. But then you've got to accept that if aliens do exist, and there is, like I said before, there's absolutely the chance that they do, they are going to be far, far more developed than us, and the whole kind of psychic link could be something that they possibly have developed. It's
yeah, I mean, these beings are telepathic. It's the best way to communicate because there is no language barrier. It's an absolute transfer of meaning.
And the thing is, in human history, we've all talked about the afterlife. We've all talked about our beings just being a meat suit. That doesn't mean that the person inside of us,
Funny you bring that up. I don't mean to interrupt you. They've actually told me a little bit about the afterlife.
Okay, I'm all ears.
It's basically, simply put, it's reincarnation. When we die, our energy that creates our consciousness, the electrical impulses in our brain, what makes our heart beat, it's all energy. And we all know that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transformed. So when we die, our physical body dies, our energy source leaves and rejoins this absolute source, this oneness, this quote unquote God. And at that point, based on the vibrational state of our being, like whether we were good or not, it allows us to either ascend or descend into the dimensional planes, going up to the fourth dimension or going down to the second dimension, which throughout human history has then been called heaven or hell. And the quote unquote limbo or purgatory is just our same dimension, just on a parallel plane.
So, what sort of sense did you get of exactly how far away these beings are and how likely they are ever to properly physically visit the Earth?
Oh, I mean, they've always been here. They're not far away at all.
Sorry, when I say how far away they are, what I meant was the origin.
Like where their home planet is.
Yeah, how far they had to travel.
That I was not allowed to know.
Right. Okay. Do you know how long? When you say they've always been here, they always been here like through the history of mankind, or just for like ages?
No, no, like they found us. They told me that all life in the universe is accidental and therefore sacred. So when they find life, they help it evolve to the point whether they can judge whether or not they can join their ranks or will become too hostile and too violent to be allowed to leave
Right.
To leave what?
their planet.
So whether humans should be allowed to venture into space, develop that technology to find other worlds.
Both us and other species.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, it's interesting when he talks about the astral planes and he talks about ascension and descension and all that sort of stuff. My mum told me that 30 years ago. She literally said, almost verbatim, word for word, what you just told me.
Really?
Yes. And it wasn't long after she had a disappearance that I've talked about. She disappeared for 9 hours, and when she returned, she thought she'd only been gone for 30 minutes. And when she came back, she seemed to be a different person. She seemed to, everything about her just seemed to be different and off. But yeah, she told me exactly word for word what you just said. The ascensions, the descensions, the going, the four planes, these levels, all this, everything you said, word for word, is exactly what she told me.
Wow.
It was like listening to me mum back. I had shivers up my back when he told.
Wow. I'm speechless. Wow.
Well, that is interesting because, like I said, I've heard similar stories to yourself before when I was talking about the Coast to Coast AM episode, and it's. I mean, I'm sure you've never spoke to Ranty about Ranty's mum, and never, you've not said that because you knew Ranty's mum had said it. I'm sure you've never listened to that one particular Coast to Coast AM episode that I happen to have listened to, and yet we're bringing out the same story. So it is interesting that you clearly are not the first person to be saying these things, which certainly adds weight to what you're saying, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I am speechless that his mom says the exact same thing almost verbatim. Like that blows my mind.
She did. She literally, almost word for word, told me this at least 30 years ago, I would say. And, this was her belief system, which she believed, the ascension, the descension, the astral planes, everything, what you just said. I was just open mouthed when you were telling me. Because it's the first time I've ever heard anyone else say it.
Wow.
So there we go. Yeah, interesting. So going forward, are your plans to continue to try to do this? Are your plans to, get information to? Well, what are your plans? I'm rather than me put words in your mouth.
Honestly, I just want to understand. I'm not looking for fame. I'm not looking to turn around knowledge and build it and make millions of dollars. I just want to understand my place and their place in our universe. I just want to understand who they are.
Okay, well, it's interesting that you said that they sent you some kind of plan or diagram how to make a perpetual motion.
I didn't even ask for it.
Yeah, but why would they give it you? That's what I mean. There must be a reason why they have given this to you. And Kat's here is a science teacher. Funnily enough.
Honestly, why they gave it to me, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, I fix phones. That's what I do. That's the extent of my engineering technological know-how.
This image, this diagram that you say that you're going to pass on that you can draw, is it what? Is it like a circuit diagram? Is it the physical outside structure of a machine?
No, it is nowhere near any kind of artist's description. I can kind of describe it for you. It's got like a central rotary shaft,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got the positive polarity on the ends of the magnets that are going around this central shaft, kind of like a fan blade type situation with a counterbalance weight on the other end. And like inside this like little cylindrical cone shaped casing, it'll have little panels of positively charged electrical magnetic pulses that when it pulses there's going to be some kind of like timed sensor, so when it passes over the panel it pulses and it sends the magnet forward, and the rotation of the magnet in zero gravity can kind of, at least in my mind, I'm not sure, I'm not a scientist, but it'll create the force necessary to get energy from the rotation.
Listen, I have a couple of questions. I don't want Cats to interrupt. Sorry about this, Cat. I just need to take the lead on this set of questions.
Yeah.
Just bear with me. There is a reason for this. So, when you was at school, were you any good at science?
No.
Okay. When you've left school, have you done any kind of job that's involved any of those components that you drew?
No.
Okay. And would you say that you're the type of person that likes to invent anything?
No.
Okay, right. So that's me. But there's a reason for this. There's a reason for that, because nobody just out of the mind just suddenly starts writing things down and drawing things down with this type of language that you're coming up with. And if you're not skilled in any of those, it makes no sense that you would suddenly start drawing them.
Right. I kind of want to, like, that's what I've kind of been thinking. Like, why? Like, out of all the things I could have been given, like, why this? This is not my forte.
And would you be able to, if you ever went back into one of these trances, do you think you would have the wherewithal within your mind to actually ask any of these beings, hey, I was given this map, I was given this diagram, I was given this invention, can you explain it to me a little bit better? Do you have that within you to do that when you're on these travels? Or is that sort of like questioning just led down a path that you don't have a conscious thought to ask the question, you're just given the information?
So yeah, that's kind of hard, because like when I'm at this place, I'm just so caught up in the moment of being there that I just like kind of like lose all thought process. It's just I'm focused on the then and now, not anything that I previously brought with me. Because I mean, I've had lines of questions to ask. I've thought about like how, like, what kind of ships do you have? Like, how do you guys like? Do you guys like music? Like, do you guys like have all these different kind of like questions? Like, figure out who they are. But it's like when I'm there, it's like, who are you? What do you want? Like, where am I?
Anything to add, Cats?
I think you brought up an excellent point when you mentioned the level of technical language, etc., that was brought up, because obviously, when we see this diagram, if it's something that's of a really high technical engineering scientific level, then you've got to wonder where that information has come from. So I'm looking forward to seeing that picture. And I think, to be honest, that's going to weigh very, very heavily on what I think about this, if that makes sense. And I'm really hoping, because I love UFO stories, I love aliens, I'm hoping I see something that I think, bloody hell, that's really high level. That's way more than I can understand. And then I can be sold, you know what I mean? So, yeah, looking forward to it.
And can I just say as well, I want you to come back. I want you to come back in 6 months or 8 months. And I want you to tell us any updates. I want you to perhaps record yourself when you're doing these meditations. Set a camera up and record yourself. See what happens. There may be something that goes on in the room that you're unaware of. And, return. And if you do get the opportunity, like I say, to go and do any more of these travels, as soon as you come back, start writing them down. Write down exactly what happened.
That's exactly what I do. I have all of my notes from every single encounter. That's what I do.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I would love to come back. I can definitely say that I will be doing more of this stuff soon throughout the next couple of months. I will definitely have more experiences to talk about.
Okay, wonderful. We'll stay in touch. And I think we're going to wrap this one up for now. We need to go and have a little bit of a think about this, don't we, Kat?
Absolutely. And it's been a brilliant story. I love it. I love UFO stories. Thank you so much for coming on. And I really do hope you come back again. It's been brilliant.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, I would love to come back anytime.
Zack, for now, me and Ranty are going to disappear into the pit so we can see what we make of your story. And I think I'm going to let Ranty go first because I need some time.
Okay, well, thank you, Cats. You're putting me on the spot here, but I don't mind. I don't mind at all. So let's get into this. So, right, I can't say and put my hat on this and say that I can believe everything that was said. Now, I do believe that for whatever reason, they are definitely connecting somehow, and maybe that is possible. Maybe that is possible through meditation. I've never personally done meditation, so I don't know if that's possible or anything like that. But tangibility wise, is there anything that I can get my teeth into and say, I can definitely believe this, I can definitely look into this and say this is real, I've got proof of this? Well, unfortunately not. Now, we do have some images that he sent us, though, which is very interesting, and it's totally out of my league because I am not a scientist in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, I flunked science at school, so no surprise there when he sent that image that I have absolutely no idea whether or not this is a viable working machine or not. But I'm also going to now go back and say, well, he does have a story about a being being in his room, and also the fact that his wife saw it at the same time. Now, that's good. That's something that we can work with. That is a possibility that maybe they are being visited in some way. Maybe they are having all these things happen to them. I just don't know. I don't know. But he's going to record on a camera. He's going to record the next time or the next few times that he does this. And I'm so looking forward to seeing what happens when he actually does these meditation sessions. Because to me, I feel that I need to see this in action. I need to see this meditation, see what he draws when he comes out of this meditation, see what happens when he goes through this. Because it is such an incredible story. The idea that there are different worlds that you can just mind go into your mind and just go there and interact with these beings. It is such an incredibly, and I'm going to say it, crazy story. But if there's the slimmest chance that it's true, I want to be the person that lauds this guy and say, hey, look at this guy. He's interacting with these different beings and he can communicate with them and they can send us this technology. I really want that to be true. Absolutely, 100% I want that to be true. And I hope he isn't disappointed with me saying that currently I need more information from that. I need more tangible things to work with. As a story, though, it's a fantastic story. And I am absolutely blown away by it because, honestly, if I feel that I could jump into my own mind and go somewhere and be somewhere and interact with distant beings somewhere, and I had the ability to do that, I would be doing it all the time. I wouldn't be sat at home doing these podcasts. I'd be off traveling the universe. And getting all this technology and bringing it back and making everyone's life so much better. So that's all I can say about it. I can't add anything more to that other than I just look forward to him coming back, showing us the video evidence of when he's actually doing these meditations with his wife. And then we've got something to work on. Then I can actually see this in motion. I can obviously can't see what is going on in his mind, but I can definitely see other things that maybe I'm missing. Maybe I'm not getting it. I don't know. What do you think, Kat?
Oh, God, well, what a story. I don't know, it's difficult. I will first of all say that I do believe that he has seen what he said he's seen while he's meditating. I don't necessarily believe that it's an alien that he's talking to, but I do believe that he's having these conversations. I was watching a documentary recently about meditation. It's a fantastic series of documentaries on Netflix. And until recently, I'd never really thought about meditation, looked into meditation, didn't know anything about meditation. And it hit me really hard just how effective meditation is at changing the way the brain not only functions, but it can also change the physical structure of some parts of the brain. Some parts of the brain are active at a level that during meditation, that they are never going to be active in at any other point in your life. So the fact that you may have visions, or time may appear to travel at a different rate, or very odd things may seem to happen when you're meditating, doesn't surprise me at all because of these incredible effects it has on the brain. There's all sorts of scientific papers that I've been looking at since that documentary that talk about the amazing things that go on inside the brain when meditation happens. It's something I need to learn a lot more about. So yeah, I do believe he had those visions. I do believe he had those images, but what I believe that they were, in all honesty, were results of the fact that he's obviously very good at meditating. And a lot of the science around meditation shows that it is a skill you develop. It's not something that anyone can just sit down and do. It is a skill you can develop. You can get better at it. You can get better, and your brain will change in the way it functions. And like I said, even the size of some parts of the brain will physically change the better you get at meditation. So I would say that both him and his wife are probably superb at meditation, and they are kind of reaping the rewards with this almost like Matrix style world that maybe they could create. What do you think?
Well, I remember as a child, my mum always telling me that, your brain, you only use like 10% of your brain or 30% of your brain or something, and the rest of it's dormant. And if you had the ability to suddenly activate the rest of your brain, then anything's possible. You can do these things. Maybe it's because I haven't actually looked into meditation and what it can actually do for the brain or for your senses or things like this. Maybe I just don't get it. Maybe I haven't put enough research into it myself because, well, essentially I haven't put as much research into it. So I am kind of flying by my seat here and being honest and open and just saying, look, I just don't get it currently. But I am sure, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that do meditate, a lot of people are going to leave comments about how silly I was to actually make comment on something that I have done very little research on. What can I say?
Well, we can't be experts on everything. And I literally only just started looking into meditation myself, not doing meditation, but looking in the science around it since I watched that documentary because of this podcast. But yeah, I was surprised just how seriously it was taken in mainstream science. And yeah, but it certainly dispelled a lot of the myths I had about meditation, where I just imagined somebody just sat in a room being quiet, taking some time for themselves. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot more about it. And I'm sure we'll get feedback from people who know far more than us and will be able to educate us on it. Maybe we could get one of them on the podcast. What do you think?
I think that's what we need. We need an expert to come on, tell us about what happens with meditation. The story's great, don't get me wrong. The story is absolutely fantastic, but we heard 90% about the story and only about 10% about the meditation. So maybe if there's a guest out there that does a lot of meditation, that wants to come on the show and educate myself, especially, and maybe not as much Kat, but definitely myself about what you can do with meditation, then please get in touch with us. All the links are in the description.
Fantastic. Sounds like a great idea for a podcast. And I think it's time to go. What do you think?
I think it is. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Bye-bye.